I've had a few requests to look at Hoben Viaduct. Admittedly, none of them were recent, but what can I say, I'm a busy guy. So, Holborn Viaduct. It's often called the world's first flyover, but it's a lot more pleasant than most flyovers. It runs right through the heart of the city. It's 1,400 feet long and 80 feet wide. In short, it's pretty big. Yet at the same time, it has this slightly secret feel to it. It's not one of London's best-known landmarks, and I'd imagine most tourists are barely aware of its existence. The viaduct spans the Fleet Valley, which is where the River Fleet carves its way through the city. The Fleet is mostly underground these days, but until the 19th century it was a significant presence in London. It was a watercourse and a navigable route, but as the city grew, it became increasingly foul. Even as far back as the 13th century, the monks at Whitefriars were complaining about the putrid exhalations of the Fleet. Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, and Ben Jonson all referenced the unpleasantness of the river. In 1815, things went from bad to worse as the restrictions on the dumping of sewage were lifted. As you might imagine, the slopes leading down to an open sewer were not exactly prime land, and for centuries the area was known as a slum. In the 14th century, Robert, Duke of Brampton, used to amuse himself by shooting the residents. The river was turned into a canal in the late 17th century, which briefly brought the area upmarket, but by the 19th century it had gone back into decline. It was a place of poverty and crime, where a maze of alleyways offered easy hiding places and escape routes. It was also an obstacle to traffic, with steep, narrow roads that were often covered with mud, if you were lucky. In the 1840s, Charles Pearson proposed a viaduct that would provide a shortcut across the valley. This was part of a larger proposal for a new railway station. The station didn't get built, but the idea was sound. In the 1860s, it was revived. It was part of a wider programme of rebuilding in an attempt to sweep away the slums, put the Fleet underground, and generally tidy this part of the city up. Around here, you were only a short distance from the financial district. A new marketplace was under construction at Smithfield. All these things were hamstrung by poor roads. The new version of the viaduct was to basically replace Skinner Street and Hoben Hill. The architect was William Hayward, responsible with Sir Joseph Bazalgette for the design of the new sewer system, which was being built in London. The engineer was Roland Mason Ordish, who collaborated with William Henry Barlow on the roof of St Pancras train shed. The viaduct was constructed between 1863 and 1869 under the watchful eye of the Improvement Committee of the City of London. This public drinking fountain from 1859, the first ever installed in London, gives the date of its relocation from Hoben Hill as 1868. Queen Victoria opened the viaduct on the 6th of November 1869. The occasion was a grand one, with a parade, the same day as she opened Blackfriars Bridge. It's a hard life being Queen, I tell you. The viaduct is built of cast iron in the true Victorian style, and is supported on granite pillars. Also in the true Victorian style is the amount of ornament. It's decorated with statues representing science, fine art, agriculture, and commerce. Science and fine art were sculpted by Henry Bursell, while commerce and agriculture were the work of Farmer and Brindley. Farmer and Brindley also designed these very symbolic lions with their paws on globes. At the ends of the main viaduct span are 4 buildings that house stairways. These too are decorated with statues. Merchant and financier Sir Thomas Gresham, engineer Sir Hugh Middleton, and former Lord Mayors Henry Fitz-Ulwyn and Sir William Walworth. The buildings on the north side are actually replicas. They were damaged during the Blitz and demolished in the 50s. Fortunately, as you can see, they have been reconstructed. One was completed in 2001, the other, on the northwest side, in 2008. The new buildings also incorporate lifts, so while they externally return the viaduct to its Victorian appearance, they also address modern accessibility concerns. Also reconstructed are the lamps, which again are modern replicas. The viaduct was originally gaslit, then in 1878 was experimentally lit with electricity. In 1882, the Edison Electric Light Station was opened at number 57. This was the first public coal-fired power station in the world and provided street lighting here as well as supplying a number of private clients. Unfortunately, it was always a bit of a loss maker and closed in 1886. The original lamps are believed to have been lost during the Second World War, and the modern replicas use LEDs. This ornamentation is all very well, but the bridge also incorporates space for gas, water and sewer pipes, plus telegraph wires and a pneumatic dispatch system. You don't see many of those nowadays. The reason Edison's boys were able to install electricity here was because the bridge had some spare culverts where they could run their cables. It was only legal for the gas board to dig the road up in those days. And what kind of a train nerd would I be if I didn't at least mention Holborn Viaduct Station? This was opened by the London Chatham and Dover Railway in 1874 and lasted until 1990. I feel like I ought to do a full video on it one of these days. There is still a station at Hoben Viaduct, namely City Thameslink. There's no service on Sundays, but the viaduct is still very close to Farringdon, Chancery Lane and Blackfriars Station. Hoben Station is, ironically, a bit of a hike. The viaduct as a whole was Grade 2 listed in 1972, an accolade which, in my opinion, is well deserved. In fact, it was much praised from the outset. The builder, as in the journal called The Builder, not the guy who built it, said, "The improvement is so grand and yet so simple, and the direction undertaken by the new road is so obviously the easiest and best that difficulties of construction and engineering details are in a manner lost sight of. And it is not until the work concealed from the eye is dived into that the true nature of the undertaking is understood." Art Journal described the artwork as throughout of a far higher character of architectural richness than has been introduced into any other similar structure. If I might editorialise here, like I've ever hesitated about that before, it's my opinion that the viaduct as it now stands really does incorporate the best of both worlds. It's as beautiful as it was when it was built, yet it's now cleaner, more energy efficient and more accessible. It's a 19th century structure, capable of meeting the 21st century head-on. Good evening! I hope you enjoyed this cast iron episode. If you did, hammer on that thumbs up button and perhaps cross the subscribe button for more content on the history of London. Thanks as always to my kind donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the charming iron bridge to my inadequate street layout. And I'll see you all again very soon. Cheerio.